Okay, what I'm going to try to do today is do a quick review over Act 4 in case you were absent the day that I did this in class. At the beginning of Act 4, we see Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus making a list of the people whom they are going to kill because they were connected with a conspiracy to kill Caesar. And they're agreeing upon even relatives, their own relatives, that they're going to kill them. And then Antony suggests that some of the money that was in Caesar's will that was supposed to go to the people, that perhaps they could redirect it into their coffers and use it for their armies. At this point, Lepidus leaves, and Octavius and Antony get in kind of an argument about whether Lepidus should be one of the three rulers of the triumvirate. Antony does not think Lepidus makes a good leader, while Octavius insists that he should be one of the three leaders. Antony says that he feels that Lepidus is a good soldier, but that's different from being a leader. And Octavius does talk about how Lepidus is a good soldier, that he's brave and courageous. And then Antony replies, "Well, so is my horse," meaning a horse is a follower. A horse does what you ask it to, but it is not something that will lead people into battle or lead a government. Okay, then in scene 2, it shifts to Brutus and Cassius's armies, and Brutus is talking to Lucilius, and he has a message from Cassius, and Cassius seems to be becoming more and more cold towards Brutus, and Brutus is really wondering what's going on because the two of them are supposed to be engaged together against Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus, and he doesn't want any strain between them. So at that point, Cassius arrives with his army, and he's obviously angry, and he accuses Brutus of having wronged him. Brutus says that he hasn't wronged him, and that he considers him a brother, but they need to go into Brutus's tent to discuss this because leaders should not really argue in front of their men. So in scene 3, they start having their discussion inside Brutus's tent, and Cassius is angry because Brutus has condemned one of Cassius's men for taking bribes, and Brutus condemned this person to death because he felt that it was dishonest and it shouldn't be happening, where Cassius was upset because he had written a letter to Brutus asking him not to condemn the person because he knew him well, and I suppose he thought he was a good man, and Brutus ignored this and did condemn the man. And then Brutus actually said to Cassius, "Well, you take bribes as well." And Cassius got, of course, angry about that, and it just kept escalating because they were both very emotional. And at some point, Cassius said to Brutus, you had better stop insulting me because I'm a soldier and I will act as one. In other words, if you keep insulting me, I'm going to attack you or kill you." And for some reason at that point, they kind of calm down and realize that they've gone too far and kind of make up. And as they're making up, Cassius asks Brutus, "Why are you so emotional?" Because Brutus generally holds his temper and is kind of a reasonable man, where Cassius is emotional. He acts on his emotions. He doesn't have much self-control. And Brutus says that the reason why he's so upset is because he just heard that Portia, his wife, has committed suicide by swallowing fire, okay, which could be interpreted as swallowing hot coals. Now, if I were to ask you what happened to Portia, you would have to tell me that she killed herself or she committed suicide by swallowing hot coals or by swallowing fire. Because if you just say, well, she swallowed hot coals and died, it could mean that somebody forced her to do this, because there's all these murders going on in Rome, and she's in Rome, and she is connected with a conspiracy because her husband is one of the leaders. So you have to make it clear that she did this to herself. All right? Okay, so Cassius feels really bad about the fact that Portia has died, and they continue to forgive each other, and they drink wine and settle down. Okay, then they start discussing what they're going to do as far as the next battle. And Brutus, okay, here is where Antony, Lepidus, and Octavius are, okay? And over here is where Cassius and Brutus are. They're in Sardis, and this is Philippi. All right. Cassius feels that they should stay where they are, that they've got a good fighting position, and they should make this group, this army, come over to them to fight. And that way their men can just rest up and be prepared for the battle. Brutus, however, feels that they should go to Philippi and attack Antony, Lepidus, and Octavius, because he's afraid that if they wait for this army to come over here, on the way over, they're going to collect more men, more supplies, and they're going to be stronger when they get here. So again, Cassius agrees to Brutus's argument, and they decide that they are going to march to Philippi. This is another one of Brutus's mistakes. His mistakes that he discusses, has an argument with Cassius, and then Cassius gives in. This is another one of those. For example, Cassius wanted Antony to be killed when Caesar was killed, and Brutus insisted that he not be killed. That was a mistake. They should have killed Antony. The second one was that Brutus wanted to allow Antony to speak at the funeral. Cassius disagreed. And the third mistake is that Brutus allowed Antony not only to speak, but to speak last, which is always a mistake, because if you want to win an argument or you want to influence people, you want to have the last word. Okay, so those mistakes he'd already made. And then, of course, this one, marching to Philippi. Well, Cassius goes ahead and agrees, and that's what they're going to do. So Brutus decides it's time to go to bed, and he's going to read for a while in bed. And he asks two of his men to come in and stay in the room as well, which isn't unusual, because in those days, a leader wanted to have other people in their room at night, so in case somebody tried to break in and assassinate them, they had these extra people to fight off whoever the person was who broke in. Okay, so as he's lying there reading his book, all of a sudden he sees a ghost. The play itself says it's the ghost of Caesar, but the ghost itself never really says that he's the ghost of Caesar. So if I were to ask you, what did he see? You could say a ghost or the ghost of Caesar. Either of those would be correct. Okay, so Brutus sees this ghost, and the ghost says that he says he's thy evil spirit, but he also says that he will see him again at Philippi. Okay, so Brutus has this ghost telling him he's going to see him at Philippi, which to me sounds really bad. That doesn't sound like I would want to go to Philippi after that, but Brutus, again, does not change his mind. He wakes up after the ghost leaves. He wakes up his men and says, "Did you hear anything, or did you see anything strange?" And they had seen nothing. Okay. The other thing you need to do for this quiz is you need to look at the two funeral speeches. One was made by Brutus. The other one was made by Anthony. You have to read those over again, because I am going to have a quotation from each of those, and you need to know who said which quotation. Okay, if you think about Brutus and Cassius, which one would you say is more honest? Well, I'd say that Brutus is more honest, because he is trying to do these acts for the good of Rome, and he doesn't lie, he doesn't fool anyone. He's very forthright about what he thinks and what he's going to do, except of course being part of the conspiracy. Whereas Cassius is very sly. He tricks Brutus by forging the letters. He also gets money illegally by taking bribes, etc. So I would say of the two, Brutus is really more about honesty than Cassius is. Okay, that's the review for Act 4.